Could you perhaps take us from Ebola and sort of what focus your team had on the question of learning loss and what you did about it, and sort of what lessons you might draw from that to inform conversations that are currently taking place about learning loss and the question of whether to open schools or not, as you know, various countries are having.
After Ebola, our first priority was to make sure that schools were reopened safely. And that meant doing the things that made people feel safe. Put the messages on radio that schools were going to be reopened and that teachers were being trained in psychosocial support because we had been through a lot of trauma. We're being given some basic pedagogical skills, but then also it meant sanitizing all of the schools too, and putting in place the hand washing protocol to make sure. So in essence, we prioritized safety, and we hoped that safety will lead to access in enrollment numbers. And then on that, we will build quality, meaning focusing on teacher training and all of those kinds of things. And so that's what we focused on. But we also felt that, hey, our country, Liberia, is way behind others in terms of learning outcomes. And I always go back to the Brookings Institution study that said that children in the developing world would take 100 years to catch up with their counterparts in the developed world if things were not changed drastically. Which is what led me to the belief that, number one, within the context of the crisis, whether be it for Ebola or for COVID-19, you need strong partnerships. Government needs strong partnerships, collaborative interventions to forge ahead and to solve the outstanding problem of the learning crisis. Before COVID-19, we knew that there were probably around 260 million out of school, 330 million in school, but they were not learning. So you see, this was already a crisis. Now you have COVID-19. It has compounded the crisis, but also it has given us an opportunity, which is where distance learning has come from. But my fear is that we are using the familiar to define the unfamiliar. There is not a lot of thinking outside of the box. For example, if we are going to use long distance learning, how have we considered access to digital literacy, which is not commonplace in rural Africa? That means if we don't do digital literacy advocacy and access enough, many more children will still be left behind. And many more teachers, particularly teachers who are before my generation and don't know anything about how the computer operates or how a cell phone operates, will be left behind. So there has to be some kind of radical movement to repurpose, to use your word again, to repurpose the meaning of this crisis. I think it's calling us to be radical. It's calling us to reimagine what the classroom is, what the classroom could be, and maybe the past will shed a lot of light on these issues. I think we need to look at the crisis that we inherited, but COVID-19 is providing us with a reflective moment in time to be able to rethink how we deliver learning and how we measure it.